So the other week, we, of course, talked about Mark Robinson. And Mark Robinson is, I don't know, he's our first, certainly prominent black Nazi supporter. He's running for governor in North Carolina as a Republican, and a whole bunch of very insane quotes or messages he posted came out. And look, I have to admit, maybe I'm naive, but I really didn't think there were any black Nazis. I thought hey, some are going to be far right, but Nazi, they want to shove your ass in the gas chamber, right? You don't escape their brutality. In their hierarchy of race, you're towards the bottom, dog. It's a wrap. They don't want you. So that was bizarre. That blew my mind. But guess what, man? Now it's double the fun because we have another MAGA Republican candidate, a black guy who's a Nazi, or at least a Nazi apologist. So Minnesota GOP Senate candidate said, and I quote, "The bad guys won in World War II. As the control of the Senate hangs in the balance, GOP candidates across the country are facing a similar problem. Troubling and bizarre past statements, both in person and on social media, are coming back to haunt them. But in Minnesota, Royce White is an even more extreme case. In a tweet from way back in 2022, bro, it's one thing if you show me, in 2008, you said, okay, 2022. Here's what he said. You ready? "It dawned on me today, the bad guys won in World War II. There were no good guys in that war. The controlling interests had a jump ball. If you look closely, you see the link between liberalism and communism in the Allied forces. Remember what General Patton said and why they capped him." I love how he thinks he uncovered some deep truth. Hey, did you know that, Western democracies, the liberal nations, allied with communism and Stalin? Yeah. Everybody knows that. In fact, it was the Soviet Union that took the brunt of the Nazi force. Way more Soviets died than Americans. It's yeah, everybody knows that. Now, does that mean that we were stealth communist nations after that? No, we had the fucking Cold War, and there was a whole big issue over the competing ideologies that many people felt were incompatible. But he says, the bad guys won in World War II. So they continue, "As is known to most, the Allied forces were fighting to defeat the Nazis and eliminate genocidal fascism, blah, blah, blah." White also erroneously claimed that General George Patton was murdered. In reality, the general died in 1945 from complications from a car crash. Anyway, he's running against Klobuchar. I don't know what the polls are looking like there, but I know that Mark Robinson is toast. Perhaps this guy will be toast too. One could only hope after he says something like, "The bad guys won in World War II." So now we have this guy, Royce White. By the way, another massive red flag. He apparently did some sort of show on Alex Jones' InfoWars network. Anyway, so you got Black Nazi here. Or Black Hitler, Blitler. I've heard other people refer to that as Blitler. That's what we got. So you got this guy, Royce White, and then you also have Mark Robinson. And there's a whole bunch of, look, I got to be honest with you. I would watch a buddy comedy where you have Mark Robinson and Royce White hanging out. I would. Because the shit they say would be absolutely insane. So for Mark Robinson, just to refresh your memory, he would post on a porn site, a late 90s looking porn site called Nude Africa. He would post under his own name, and he would say stuff like, "Homosexuality is abominable." Actually, this is the stuff we knew before we even found the Nude Africa comments. It was already a scandal that he had said homosexuality is abominable after the Pulse nightclub shooting where gay people were gunned down. He did Holocaust denial. He said that Jews made the movie Black Panther to, quote, "get shekels out of blacks." He said he wanted to go back to an America where women couldn't vote. He mocked school shooting survivors and called them spoiled little bastards. He apparently frequented a porn shop for 5 days a week for decades. In 2020, he called for a total abortion ban. Now he's changed his tune and says he has some exceptions. But on Nude Africa, he literally labeled himself a black Nazi. He spied on women while in public showers as a teen. He said, and I quote, "I like to watch transgender on-girl porn." This is, by the way, somebody who's totally against trans rights, but beating his meat to trans women. In response to a story of a woman being raped by her taxi driver. He said, quote, "The moral of the story is don't F a white bitch." He said about the Washington, D.C. MLK statue, quote, "Get that fucking commie bastard off the National Mall." He implied he wanted to be in the KKK. He called Martin Luther King, and I quote, "Martin Lucifer Coon." He called him a huckster, a ho fucking phony, and a maggot. And of course, I saved the best for last here. He said, quote, "Slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I'd certainly buy a few." Mark, I'm not sure you understand the dynamics of how that worked if you think you'd be in the position to buy a few slaves. And he said, quote, "I'd take Hitler over Barack Obama." And in response to soldiers kissing after returning from deployment, he said, that's some old sick ass gaggot bullshit. I obviously changed the word. You guys got a kick out of me. I read all like the juicy pornographic things that he wrote, but I would not say the F slur for gay people. I mean, YouTube terms are what they are, so, you know, I got to do what I got to do here. But anyway, that was Mark Robinson. Now we got Royce White, perhaps Royce White. I guess somebody should go searching some weird, obscure porn website to see if Royce White has also been posting under his name there, because it might be a trend. It might be a trend with the black Nazi supporters to post on porn websites and say the most unhinged things you could ever imagine. So anyway, what should be very clear to everybody, including me now, what should be very clear is apparently anybody can be a Nazi, right? Anybody can be a Nazi. Anybody can be a Nazi. That's what it looks like. And it's kind of crazy to me that when you go to the far right on the spectrum, like, the mask only slips a little bit before you realize, oh, more Nazis. Like, you would think that there'd be different flavors and varieties of far-right extremism, right? Like, there are the monarchist types and the theocracy believers and, you know, whatever, fill in the blank. But, like, at the end of the day, it always comes out eventually like, oh, no, you all just, when you go far-right enough, it's just, you're all Nazis. We even have many prominent black Nazis now, so I guess the Nazis are getting more diverse. That would be my takeaway. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.